Originally released as a series of games for mobile phones in Japan, Theresia was released on the Nintendo DS as Theresia Dear Emil in Japan on September 11, 2008, and as Theresia in the US on October 30, 2008. The DS version of the game is only a portion of the series, which I understand is no longer available. The game was developed by WorkJam and published by Arc System Works in Japan and Axis Games in the US. Theresia is a psychological survival horror game with visual novel elements and people with no eyes. The game is split into two stories, the main game Dear Emil and the side story Dear Martel, which is unlocked upon completing Dear Emil. In Dear Emil, you start off as an amnesic girl who wakes up in what appears to be an abandoned facility with nothing but a pendant and a piece of paper with Theresia written on it. Over the course of the game, you'll explore the facility that you're in while trying to uncover your memories and avoiding the traps that have been set up all over the place. In Dear Martel, you play as an unnamed male who awakens in an abandoned building with no memory who must also try to recover them while trying to avoid traps set up around the place. Dear Martel is a shorter story and provides additional information and narrative in regards to the events of Dear Emil. But, is the game any good? Find out in The Good. The one thing Theresia nails perfectly is its atmosphere. The combination of storytelling, artwork and use of music and sounds blends very well with the settings and genre and provides a thrilling experience. The game does feature some fairly descriptive details around corpses found throughout the game, and believe me, you'll be seeing a lot of them, as well as the decrepit and decaying setting. Dear Emil does contain some very strong and mature themes in it, which I won't mention as it's a spoiler, but it makes itself very clear as you progress through the game. I also enjoy the change of scenery for Dear Martel, which takes place in an entirely different location instead of reusing locations from Dear Emil. It makes the experience feel fresh, while maintaining the familiar game mechanics of Dear Emil. The game also features additional story material which are unlocked after completing Dear Emil and Dear Martel. Each of those stories summarises the notes you pick up over the course of the game to regain your memories, and tells the story around the main characters and the things leading up to the events of the game. Dear Emil's story is called Lost Time, and Dear Martel's story is called Times Past. Each story can take a while to read, and a lot of it you can piece together through the course of the game, but it's always nice to know that there's a detailed summarised version available once you complete the game. The game does require a bit of thinking outside the box, which is something I certainly welcome. Rookie mistakes such as grabbing a knife by the blade end instead of using an item to pull it out is rewarded by having your character get injured. Even the final door in Dear Emil would kill you unless you took specific steps to ensure your safety. The attention to detail has been put down very well, and the game's puzzles add to the enjoyment. But not everything about Theresia was good, so here we have the bad. This had more of an effect in Dear Emil more than Dear Martel, but backtracking is a real pain in the arse. In Chapter 3 of Dear Emil, you're required to destroy some rocks to gain access to a room. There's two ways you can approach this. You could either wait until Chapter 4 to gain an item to enable you to destroy rocks, and then backtrack to the room, or you could access the room in Chapter 3 by using grenades to blow up the rocks, which is fine and dandy except you can only carry 2 grenades at a time, and you would have to keep travelling to a storeroom just to open a box and get 2 more, before travelling back and using said grenades, just so you can replenish them by travelling back to the storeroom. Another item which can cause unnecessary headaches is the Neutralizer that you make from chemicals in a room. There are a few times where it needs to be used, and if you haven't prepared some Neutralizer, you would have to go all the way back to the place with the ingredients needed to make it. It also doesn't help that you move quite slowly, which also makes this a time-consuming endeavour. I also really hated the traps, not because they could kill you, but how inconsistent they could be. Traps range from anything such as pieces of metal piercing your skin, things falling down on you, chemical burns, things falling down on you, and electrocution to name a few. No, I didn't make a mistake by listing things falling down on you twice, but if that's happened to you already by moving the item that hurt you in the same direction, things will somehow magically fall on you or hurt you again. Thankfully, the game offers elixirs to heal you of your injuries, as well as 2x4 pieces of wood so you can test for traps. However, while Dear Emil leaves subtle hints as to whether places are trapped or not, the same can't be said about Dear Martel, which leaves no indication of whether parts of a room are trapped. And you would have to hope to hell that what you're prodding or moving wouldn't hurt you. I feel that the placement of the traps really discourages the player from exploring, or forces them to be incredibly cautious about their surroundings. Some of the items I found in the game also serves very little purpose, others next to none. Examples being a towel and a piece of curtain that you pick up on your travels during Dear Emil. All I found they really do is take up part of your never-ending inventory space until they're destroyed as a result of things happening in the game. The towel I mentioned earlier, depending on when it was received, can either be a dry towel or, as a result of events in the game, a wet towel. Regardless of whichever it is, the towel gets burned up in another area anyway, making the choice of whether it was wet or dry completely meaningless. Dear Emil is also quite generous with crossbow bolts, as I found that I had a great deal of them by the end game. The pendant used in Dear Emil is also used to figure out what to do next, and I found that in terms of usefulness, it paled in comparison to the mirror shard from Dear Martel, which served the same purpose. However, complaints aside, it's time to give the opinion. As annoying as I found parts of Theresia to be, the storytelling, atmosphere and music more than make up for it. I feel the game is an underrated gem for the Nintendo DS, and it's well worth picking up. I sort of wished the other games in the series could have gotten a release, but the contents of those games for now will remain a mystery. The game took me around 15 hours to complete, and I highly recommend it to anyone who likes a good psychological horror game as well as reading. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Theresia the small child with no eyes holding a plush toy out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review.